Thank you for joining us today to discuss equity hiring and strategies and the importance of this being implemented into your organizations for their success. My name is Bronwen Gregg. I am with Insight Global. I lead our gaming casinos portfolio at Las Vegas. We are a talent solutions firm helping our clients attract, develop, and retain talent and services such as recruiting, managed services, culture and diversity consulting, etc. I'm also president of WISE, Women in Sports and Events Las Vegas, as well as membership co-chair of Global Gaming Women, both nonprofits dedicated to advancing, empowering, and developing women in their respective industries. I'm super excited to be joined by an amazing panel.
The difference between equality and equity, equality means that everybody gets the same. So whether you need something different or otherwise, it doesn't matter. You get the same as Bronwen would, and as somebody else, and somebody else, and somebody else. And equity means that you get what you need to have a fair and impartial experience. So I always use the example, I'm not very tall. We might be looking at a fence. My friend who's 6'5" might be able to see over the fence. I might need a little step stool, and somebody who might be in a wheelchair, or somebody who might be smaller than I am might need 2 little step stools. So we all have different needs, and that's what equity is, giving you what you need to have that same experience.
Yes, that was well said. It's a good analogy. But before getting started, I want to take a few minutes and really paint a picture with data. We hear a lot about the importance of these topics, and especially if you're not in HR and you are hiring manager, executive stakeholder, etc. Sometimes it's kind of hard to put a visual together, right? And unfortunately, we receive a lot of feedback that sometimes these topics maybe seem to come off as fluffy, or there's not enough return on investment data. We're obviously here to tell you that that's not the case, and there actually is really impressive data out there. So I want to share a couple stats with you and do a little case study and take a few minutes here. So overall, I mean, we're all seeing the reports, right? Female user growth rates are double that of men, more than double on iGaming and sports betting apps. You also have, so for Women's March Madness this past year, right? So it was the most streamed final game of any women and men included sports on ESPN+. I mean, that is so impressive. Obviously, our industry needs to, right, I'm talking about gender here, there are so many different elements of equity and diversity, but that's a good starting point, right, to see the evolution that our industry is experiencing and how we need to be intentional now. Also, if you look at just generational statistics, right, 48% of Gen Zs actually report or identify as racial and ethnic minorities, and by 2025, millennials and Gen Z are going to be the majority of the workforce. So by not being intentional about these topics now, we're unfortunately just not going to have a sustainable industry here. So we really need to dive into this. I'm going to ask if we could switch to the slide that I sent over, Aiden. Okay, great. So up here is a little case study, actually a little vulnerable, my own company here, Insight Global. So we went through an incredible culture transformation back in about 2017. And the impact was astounding. So back in 2017, also to add some context here, Insight Global is an organically grown company. We promote from within. Even our CEO, Bert, he started as a recruiter in training. Also, to add a little bit of additional context, typical attrition rates for entry-level positions, they kind of fluctuate between 35 to 45%. So in 2017, our attrition was over 60%. It was bad. Our people were firing us. And you could feel it. You could feel the energy in the offices, right? The momentum was being lost. It wasn't a good time. So Bert Bean, he just started as CEO at that time, and he was transitioning into that role. He was like, all right, something's broken. Took our executive leadership out to a week-long offsite, actually went out to Utah, got super, super vulnerable about what is our purpose? What's our identity as an organization? What is broken? How do we fix it? How do we retain our people? Out of that week-long, we call them Compass now, that culture retreat, so many amazing initiatives have been injected into the Insight Global culture, and the results have been absolutely incredible. It's things like, for example, the offsite now, that's provided to every single team. So all of us have an annual budget each year to go out and do a deep dive into our own culture. We implemented a Women's Leadership Council, a Diversity Council, and I'm proud to be part of both. We also implemented merit-based Fridays off programs, which are amazing. Very, very good. Also, too, we have free mental health counseling. We have philanthropic endeavors like our Insight Global Family Foundation, which is a grant assistance program. I mean, I could go on and on. As you can see from this graph, last year, our attrition below 20%, and our revenue has literally doubled, $2 billion to $4 billion in 7 years. I mean, that is like, if that doesn't show you enough ROI data about the importance of diversity and culture, I don't know what would. So hopefully that is helpful for context and to put a visual into the importance of these topics.
And Bronwen was hired in 2018, so she's part of that curve as well.
Actually, I was from 15, so 15. I saw the dirt. It was that. So it's amazing that I'm not leaving anytime soon. But yeah, so hopefully that helps paint a picture of data here. You'll also mention or notice that I didn't actually bring up the AGA report that recently came out about diversity statistics in the gaming industry. There was not a distinction between commercial versus tribal versus regulatory. So unfortunately, you just can't really make a distinction about exactly where progress is being made. But amazing report by AGA for an overall view of the industry. So let's dive into it. Stakeholder education and accountability. Obviously, as HR professionals, and right, we did our pulse check, there's only one more of us in here. So we know the importance, right, of these topics, but it's our job, the best HR leaders, we need to educate and hold our stakeholders accountable. Actually, if you look at the Society of Human Resources, so 76% of employees think it's their manager's job to build culture, not HR. So we really need to be intentional and start at the top. So, Tyjondah, you've been, let's go. So, you've been in this industry the longest out of our panelists. So, tell us your most effective strategies that you've seen for stakeholder education and accountability.
It's because people fear the unknown. And so I did a really deep dive, especially when I became the director of EDI in 2020, to share stories, to connect the dots, to educate from a personal perspective. I share
Stories are permission slips.
Yes,
so
that's
powerful.
100%. And so telling my story, having people see it through my lens, that was a huge part of the influence for people to open minds and say, okay, we need to do something about it. So I would say the stories from the many people who, like me, have been with your organizations for a long time are important, as well as having a really good leader. So our CEO at OLG, Duncan Hannay, has, I don't even know, transformed the way people think in terms of culture and building an inclusive culture, a performance-driven inclusion culture, because it's about money. Like at the end of the day, we have to, for OLG especially, we give money back to the province. All of our money goes back to the province of Ontario. And so part of that inclusive culture build, it does come from the top, as well as the lived experiences of the people you value. And so I would say 100% that's where we've got to start doing. We've got to start listening to our employees, hear what they're saying, value their voices, see things through different lenses, and have our leaders push the conversation through. Like, it always has to be top of mind. You can't just say you're going to do it. You can't just check a box. You can't just say, I've hired a woman of color and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. No. You hired a woman of color with years of gaming experience to help you advance your organization to the next level. So make those connections, make those authentic, genuine connections. Make sure your leaders or hiring managers are being intentional on hiring, especially in terms of equity.
And you'll be really excited to hear your perspective on effective strategies. FanDuel obviously is well known for amazing intention in this space. Amy Howe speaks a lot on these topics and is definitely an inspiration to a lot of us. So excited to hear your perspective on FanDuel strategy.
Yeah, and like you said, we have a female CEO, which is fabulous, and actually 40% of our executive leadership team are women. So really, I joined a company, like I said, that's vibrant, young, ready to have a strategy and perspective on D&I. So when I walked in, I had the tools in place to really bring forth governance around it. But I believe what you were saying about stories and storytelling. I think since I have joined, there is a culture now of people talking about their experiences, people starting to understand that we are not the same and that we have differences and appreciating those differences. We're not a melting pot. We're not asking everyone to be the same, but we're acknowledging and recognizing that everyone comes from a different place and appreciating that to the fact that this is all better for our company and for our business.
And I love that you're the first person in a role at FanDuel, but obviously there's already a culture of inclusivity and, and yes, equitable representation, diverse elements, et cetera. What do you think there was? I mean, do you think that it was in his leadership? What do you think in the culture? And also, great example, right? Top down, this is not just within HR.
I definitely think it was Amy's leadership. It's interesting, we're doing a women's leadership development program, and I had one of the executives who was here before Amy was in place. And I posed the question to him, what's different? Or is there a difference with Amy's leadership and the predecessor? And he did talk about the culture was changing because of having a woman leading the company in terms of addressing diversity, leaning in. And Amy is unapologetic about the diversity initiative that we have at the company. So I think that her leadership has really filtered down. Listen, and I say this all the time, we're on a journey. I mean, we're not perfect. We have a lot to correct and improve, but definitely this company has an appetite for that. And I think it starts at the leadership, and everybody is now just kind of jumping on board. And now we have governance, we have a strategy, and I think everyone's leaning in and saying, okay, we're gonna move forward.
Can I touch on something real quick? Because what I love what Amy's doing at FanDuel, 100%, but what I think she's done so well is she actually did it right. It's getting a culture of inclusion first. Then you want to hire for diversity, because you don't want to put people in this place where they are, unsafe, right? So you want to make sure that people are welcome. It's what you felt when you got there, right? So that's what I would say. Inclusion's first. Like we always say DEI, or I personally say EDI, so equity, get your rules and processes first. But diversity comes last. Make sure you have that culture. Make sure people know that they're safe in your environments. Make sure you understand that cultural differences. That have that culture of cultural humility. And then go hire your Black VP, your Black CEO, etc.
You have a really good perspective on this too. I know during our brainstorming session you said very similar, right? The deed actually doesn't come first. So what are your effective strategies and recommendations?
You took the words right out of my mouth.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, I love it. I'm sitting here. No, my gosh, please. She said it 100% right. Diversity is the last stage when you hear DE&I. It might be because it's alphabetical order, and it just sounds nicer than EID or IED. I don't know. We got to be careful with how we're using these acronyms, but ultimately, a sense of inclusion is not to be forced on anybody. I'll never forget when I interviewed for one of my past jobs, and they paraded every female on the team into the room to meet me. And I said, I think there's not even one person here that I identify with. And it was just based on what they thought I'd feel most comfortable with. And it was actually the person who was least similar to me visually that I identified with. And me and this person went on to work together for years. And one of the things I said after I got hired was, you all just assumed you knew, because I'm a diverse candidate on your team, because I'm first generation American, I'm Middle Eastern, I'm this, I'm that having a woman in the room would make me feel more comfortable. And it actually made me feel like you were pinpointing my one difference and saying, oh, okay, let's hone into that.
Themes that come up when everybody has conversations about the importance of these topics, and those are typically diversity of thought and allyship. So let's lean into those, for a moment and really dive deep onto strategies, why they're important, and strategies to really make them effective within your organization as well. So Keita, I know we both know an amazing story about some people at FanDuel who have a great allyship story. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, I think it's really impactful.
Sure. So when I came to FanDuel, one of the things I had to do was get to know the community, get to know the people, and I had a chance to go to Atlanta. And I met a woman in Atlanta, and she was telling me about her story, that she was a person who had previously been in the military. And that she was, I can't remember exactly what she did in the military. I'm sure
she drove tanks. She was like one of the first women
to ride tanks, or was in this, I guess, platoon or group of individuals where she was like the only woman. and was really had this great career in the military. But then when she wanted to get out, couldn't find a job that would recognize her military career or accept it as like work. So all the companies that she was looking at wanted to actually start her in a very junior position, despite the fact that she had served at this, in this role in the military. And she had met a gentleman who she told her story to about all the things that she had done in the military. And he was an advocate for her, that he was the person who brought her to FanDuel, got her the job that she has. And they, since then, have developed this strong relationship, and he's basically an ally for her. So, those are the types of stories that you like to hear about, somebody recognizing somebody's journey or experience and then advocating on their behalf. He was in a position where he could make things happen, and he did that for her, and now she's at FanDuel and having a great experience. So we talk about, this at FanDuel a lot about allyship, and Amy talks about this. She's like, everywhere that I have progressed or gone to hasn't been because of a woman. It's actually been because of men who have actually used their position, used their influence, recognized my talent, and invested in me, right, to get to where I am. So we have a women's leadership development program, and we are looking at emerging leaders, and we said that we were going to have mentors for our participants. And I remember calling some of the men and asking them would they serve as mentors, and they were like, I'm not a woman. And I was like, well, you don't have to be a woman to mentor women, and we need men on this journey for equality and for opportunities. So we believe in allyship, we believe in mentorship, because we think it's important for those to use their platforms to help others who might not have those same opportunities.
Exactly. And I love that, right, you also hit on transferable skill sets. That's another difficulty within our industry, right? It's only been 5 years. And so we have to look at leveraging transferable skill sets, whether it's land-based or a totally different industry. I think it's also really important to harp on allyship, and this is what your stories have articulated. Allyship is an action. It's not an identity. My mom's a lesbian. That doesn't make me an ally of the LGBTQ plus community. My actions do. My support and my
We actually are at gender parity even in our organization. Both the board level and our executive level. So we're very, very proud of the work that we're doing. We do, however, need to take it one step further and look at that intersectionality. And so where are women of color on that? So, we started though, and then the conversation is going to continue.
Can you actually explain what intersectionality means for those who may not be familiar with the term?
Absolutely. Do I know what it means? Okay. So it's funny because we have this conversation because everybody's using intersectionality in all of the different ways now, but it actually was coined by a Black woman, Kimberly. And what Kimberly was doing was basically trying to see, so her company was hiring, and they said they were hiring for diversity, and they were hiring for, people of color. But what they were doing is they were hiring Black men for the labor, the hard labor, and they were hiring women for the administrative jobs, but it was white women. And so Black women were not being hired for the labor part because we weren't being looked at in terms of our strength, and nor were we being hired as women because we were being passed over for white women in that role. And so she had coined this term and kept it going forward about the invisibility of Black women when you use the term diversity. Because you only lean to one group. And so that's actually where it stems from, but now we use it in all these different facets of our diversity dimension. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but that's where it was started. It was started by a Black woman to give us visibility, and it's still not being used to help us. And so it's funny that because you're helping me segue into the diversity of thought, which I actually have a really bad. I cringe when people say diversity of thought, because don't use it as an excuse. Don't make your room all homogenous and think you're going to think differently, and so therefore your decisions are going to be different. Diversity of thought stemmed from different people actually being in the room to share their experience, their stories, to connect so that you can advance your business. So please, if you have hiring leaders in this room, don't think just because you all look the same that and you think differently that's diversity of thought. Diversity of thought means having people across difference in the room, sharing their voices, sharing their experiences, so your company can be and do better.
That was perfectly articulated. That was well said.
I tried.
Yeah. Arielle, excited to hear your thoughts on diversity of thought, allyship, strategies for both.
So I was at the Tribal Women in Gaming conference last week, and a question about allyship and advocacy came up, and actually it was somebody from BetMGM, so I'm going to say Anna, our head of diversity, equity, and inclusion, had such a beautiful answer, so I'm going to share that she changed it from allyship and advocacy to sponsorship and mentorship. Within our organization and within this space, we are looking at each other thinking, this has only been around for 4 years, 5 years. Most of us have not come from the gaming space, except my friends from Ontario over here. But we all are coming with transferable skills. We all come from different backgrounds. But again, to drive the point home, just because I came from media and you came from gaming and you came from the, I'm going to call it consulting strategy space, does not mean we have all different opinions. We do, but we might still have similarities. So having somebody in the room who is a stark contrast, maybe it's gender diversity, maybe it's sexual identity, maybe it's your race, your ethnicity, your religion, things that you might not be able to see, that's really what's propelling people forward. And to have a safe space to be able to articulate all of this, that makes it even more important. I have a small child. If my child all of a sudden falls down, I can take the time off that I need because we have unlimited time off. And BetMGM, just like a lot of organizations, when COVID restrictions were being raised or were being removed, there we go. We tried to figure out what's the best strategy. We pulled the entire office, just like what I was saying with those employee quarterly surveys. And I think the statistic was 0.05% of people said they wanted to be in the office full time. I'm assuming that's similar in this room, that your organizations had something similar. And what we did was, there was a work stream with a ton of people. When I say I got onto these conference calls one of my first few weeks, and there was no less than 50 people on this call working towards what will the BetMGM flexibility policy look like, and there's something for everybody. Dependent on business needs, dependent on your own personal situation.
I love that. And once again, stories are permission slips. So keep talking about it, right? You don't know how much, even a seemingly insignificant experience that you might have, sharing that with somebody, that could be their catalyst for changing their entire career, life, etc. So keep sharing stories and having these conversations. And I feel like feedback that I get a lot is that it can be an intimidating topic, especially if you feel as though you are not representative in one of these demographics. Just don't be intimidated. We're all here to support, and we want this industry to be as successful and powerful and sustainable as possible. And this is one of those key elements to it. So just keep having the conversation. And great question. I also was so happy that you brought up Global Gaming Women, because GGW, amazing organization. Definitely check them out, as well as WISE, Women in Sports and Events. So definitely come join us.
403, I don't really have a question. I just want you ladies to know you need to give yourself a big hand.
Thank you.
And I am going to be part of the solution of the challenge, because I don't believe in problems, I believe in challenges. My name is Ron Williams. I am with Seminole Tribe of Florida, Hard Rock International, Assistant Director of Operations. And you guys can teach me how to be a sponsor, but more importantly, I want you guys to be a bridge. I'm going to be the bridge to connect you to women that work for me of all backgrounds that are very good at what they do, from surveillance managers to commission managers to executives, and even connect you guys with our diversity person. So kudos to you guys. Let's connect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
Happy to connect.